I'll say it, I've never seen the appeal of a harem. The idea of being able to pleasure multiple women is ridiculous, as I struggle with just the one. On account of being an animal, and thus all of my partners go to prison, it makes me, Wolf, the perfect person to break down what a harem is, and more importantly, what you should be annoyed by. The last trope video I did really well, and the ones after, total horseshit, so drop me the usual like, comment and whatever, and tell me how right I am at the end. A harem is defined as the inviolable sacred place where women of the Muslim household dwell. Look at me giving you facts right off the bat, and not something I made up because I found it funny. Many cultures had different versions of these women's only spaces, and the tradition survives to this day, with book clubs and Zara Larsson concerts. Having a special place for women sounds wonderful in concept, filled with things to occupy them until you arrive and then leave once you are bored, effectively reducing women to the status of chinchilla trapped in cages. Many religions and cultures did this in one form or another. Anime, however, provides Hara with something different, and that's personal agency. Then again, if I was heavenly destined by fate or the gods to romantically pursue one of these little twats, then I'd prefer the goldfish treatment, thanks. Lock me in the cage and throw away the key. Technically speaking, if a harem is a closed space for women, then a reverse harem is just outside. Harem anime is of course the height of degeneracy, but that kind of goes without saying. That's like saying water is wet or the president's a paedophile. The first anime I ever watched was Demon King Daimyo. It's completely trash, but I'm weirdly affectionate for it, following the story of a guy who is the Demon King. Shocker, I know. Someone called the surprise police, we have a live one. It confused me when I watched it. Usually with stories, it tends to follow the main characters, and then, their story towards romance. But then it just kind of moves on to another character, and then another, and then another, and then they all just kind of coexist, which is odd. I think, ladies, we can all agree that the only people who hate women more than incels and employers is other women. The closest I came to a harem myself was being put in a group in college. The grade mark was really important, and I was the only cunt paying attention. They were fighting for my time, I'll tell you what. They mainly just shit-talked each other, to be honest. My mother taught me that listening is important, so I just kind of sat there like this, as Amanda proceeded to describe how cavernous she believed Hannah's arsehole was. It was dreadful. I was practically begging to show them how CAD-CAM worked. What I'm saying is that harem members are far too nice in anime, and it makes boring viewing. Hence why Toradora, a wolf-certified banger, is one of my favourite shows, as at one point the two girls just have a proper good scrap. Oh shit, it's a list video, sorry. Number 1. Marriage. You'd have to be fucking dense to marry a whole harem. Joining the Mormon church is not worth it. I knew Joseph Smith, and he stole all my golden tablets that I've been hoarding since Babylon fell. Fucking dickhead. Imagine the kind of prenup you'd have to sign with taking 6 wives. If that thing isn't ironclad, you might as well kiss goodbye to your surplus organs and proceed to divide your adventuring loot between all the parties involved. Isekai protagonists especially always want to get married. I presume to take advantage of some backward laws that the other world has to trap someone in legal bondage. If I was getting married to a harem, I'd have it all done at once like one of those weird Korean cult weddings. Get everyone all together in one reception and just not tell each of the families the situationship we find ourselves in. Side note here, but I'm not paying a fucking dowry if I get married. It's not medieval France anymore. I don't owe you a herd of goat for your daughter's hand. I met her in a bar in Rochdale, not at the King's Ball. Anyway. Number 2. Coloured hair. This I can actually give info on, rather than just me being a miserable bastard and insulting people. Coloured hair in anime is used as a storytelling tool to easily provide cretins, the means to tell other characters apart in their personalities. Considering Japanese people pretty much all have dark hair, the idea of coloured hair is considered exotic and makes them stand out. Looking like Skittles but less appealing, anime girls are given this crutch, but not men, and never the main character. Are you crazy? Given a main character its own agency, and not as a blank slate for shitty wish fulfillment? The laziness of coloured hair is very annoying, but struggling to tell characters apart is a bit of a problem. I'd have those giant badges like you get on birthday cards, or alternatively, stick post-it notes to their forehead with their names on. Coloured hair also indicates personality without fail. Red hair, passionate. White hair, calm and cool. Green hair, made of mint or nettle, I don't know. Obviously in anime, hair dye isn't real. You could break the entire industry if someone dyed their hair. The ice skating girl with the double coloured hair would really throw them for a loop, completely fuck everything up. In anime land, you can actually tell if someone has multiple personalities with shifting colour hair. Number 3. Dickless gnome. A dickless gnome is another one of my special designations, much like fat pussy from my previous trope video. Go watch it. To be a dickless gnome, you have to be 2 things. The first, oblivious, and the second, be genetically more akin to jellyfish than human. Immediately in your head, you know exactly who I mean when I say dickless gnome. So all together now, 3, 2, 1, dickless gnome, boom. A dickless gnome is best identified by their reactions to anything racier than a Catholic nunnery, usually standing there making noises like this. It's indecision that defines a dickless gnome, and it's where the gnome part comes from. Gnomes don't have a fight or flight response, they just sit there and die. Dickless gnomes actually don't understand what human contact feels like, treating physical contact in the same way that a slug fears salt. Raised in vats instead of a human womb, a dickless gnome suffers from crippling indecision. Forcing one to make a choice would be like ingesting a cacti whole. You see, making any choice is anathema to maintaining a long-running manga. I've seen people spend longer in purgatory than the MCs making a decision in a harem. We'd sooner see the heat death of the universe than an MC finally making a shortlist of who to inadequately pork. This is evidence that I've been compiling to make it national policy to provide anime protagonists with carers so that they can make the important decisions for them, such as what identical outfit to wear each day or when to breathe. Number 4. Vampire reverse harems. Bit of a reach, but alas, it is my list. Women are less reprehensible than men. Call me a mansogynist or whatever the fuck it's called. A mansogynist sounds like the specialist doctor who puts a finger up your bum and checks for lumps. I prefer reverse harems. See villainess ones for a fun flip on the idea. The more cringe the reverse harem, the better, and look no further than vampire reverse harems. I like vampire media. Why? I don't know, because I fucking suck. There's a lot of vampire reverse harems, and they are all completely terrible without fail. Here's my judgmental gaze, ladies, but why so many? There must be an audience, so I don't like the idea of being bitten by dubious consent. Call me old-fashioned, but if a handsome man tried to hold my hands up above my head and bite me, he'd get a macing so hard that I'd need a power washer to clean out his eyeballs. Vampires are sexy, I believe, because they dress like the primary means of warmth is still coal. Personally, the biggest threat in vampire reverse harems is not the conflicting personality of the sexy vampires, but in fact, hepatitis B. Number 5. Royalty. It's a legal requirement for all harems to have at least one member of royal lineage. Considering that there is, I don't know, maybe 7 royals in the world who are currently not living in disgrace and aren't old, harems, it seems, must settle for perhaps people further away from the throne as previously intended. Nearly all Europeans are said to be in some way related to Genghis Khan, so I guess that will have to do. I always find the idea of a royal being put in a harem with peasants quite funny. There's something very liberating about the idea. I don't think I'd have a royal in my harem personally. There's no need to add that level of inbreeding to my bloodline. It's like having a child but has an 8th chance of every crescent moon to fucking explode. The little bastard would come out with eyes like Haruhi Suzumiya or whatever she's called, and I would assume the princess smoked during pregnancy. Isekai protagonists unfortunately target royalty exclusively, essentially making them an endangered species by the end of a season. I've said it before in the video that if all of the world's princesses marry the same dork, then that lineage is doomed to inbreeding for 1,000 years. By then, they'd resemble a transitional species between human and gecko. Why'd they ever let a foreign peasant be within eyeshot of a royal is also quite funny to me. You'd be crucified if you tried to do that back then. Anyway, number 6. Tsunderes. The idea of treating them mean to keep them keen is not a real thing. Whoever came up with that is a psycho. A girl when I was like 12 came up to me as I was playing football in the playground. And clearly, she'd obviously heard this advice and was like, Wolf? Yes, I said, my voice deep and luxuriously gay. You're actually quite ugly. We just kind of looked at each other. And I was like, well, fuck you too, bitch. And she ran away crying. Not my finest moment, I admit, but I stand by it in principle. Tsunderes in Harem are even more annoying than dickless gnomes, as they are even more secretly bashful. These characters react like Gojo when something almost touches them, activating their domain expansion and repelling at a molecular level, as, oh, our hands almost touched, oh good heavens. They might as well be one of those bubble kids who can't go outside of their little dome in case they catch a disease. They are also always in the front runners for some reason, along with number 7. Number 7. Childhood friend. Childhoods and friends are overrated. Personally, I spawned from the ether like the starting round of Counter-Strike, so I never had one. I can't help but feel that most anime protagonists were the weird kid in their street, so their parents asked around the local childrens of who could be friends with them. Here's a fun fact. The whole childhood friend thing is actually based on a local Japanese custom known as baka yoro, that if you don't find a marriageable partner by the time you reach adulthood, it's tradition to marry the nearest eligible bachelor in your village. Hence why the idea of being paired with the beautiful girl is so common in anime and manga, as it was a means to hurry up the selection of partners and keep the population growing in wartime. This tradition dates back to the Sengoku I can't believe you fucking fell for that era. No, I think it's just wish fulfillment, as they hope eventually they may just get a sympathy shag. Number 8. Accidental pervert. One of the more hated tropes because of how innately cringe it is. If you're gonna be a pervert, you might as well own it. Take your place on the registry with pride, my friend. Issei from High School DxD, for example. Being an accidental pervert is somehow more creepy than just being a pervert, and I can't really explain that. Oh, you don't know what an accidental pervert is? Okay, let me help you. A guy has someone fall on them, and they get to grab a shapely tit, or their face acts as a train stopper for an errant muff. This is surprisingly common in anime, which leads me to believe that Japan has inadequate work safety measures. All of these protagonists are not a single one with an OSHA certificate, or are forklift certified. There's an entire subgroup of people who are waiting for young women to fall over, which usually I'd laugh at, but in this context it's kind of creepy. Harem protagonists witness as many accidents as Chinese industrial factory workers. Considering the type of accidents that I personally try to avoid, I think they should make harems more relatable to me by having them desperately try not to shit themselves in the back of the class.
I went to fart and instead shit myself.
Well, leads me nicely to number 9. Number 9. The settings. A ubiquitous position in the anime genre, harem anime are often set in schools, which is like having an open flame and set in a firework factory. By having the protagonist sit in the same seat at the back of the class, the harem can find them each morning with no need to utilise the trackers they slipped into as food. If I was made the principal of an anime school, which honestly sounds like a great idea for a video, I'd set a Wallace and Gromit style contraption that feeds the main character into some kind of giant shredder to cut down on the school's net amount of silly bollocks. School anime, however, was almost eradicated in its entirety by the introduction of the isekai, and something that is also inherently funny. It's pretty much admitting that you'd need to be obliterated by God and your particles reconstituted in another world before a woman will give you any pussy. I personally don't like it when they bring someone from Japan with them and they stay in the harem. Look, let's be real. As soon as I learn that I can shag a real wizard, just pack up your things, love, and fuck off home. I'm not interested. isekai harem members almost always have weird kind of German names. Sylvie von Drakengardner, or Lily von Crackerbatty, and almost always never Asian unless they are from the predetermined Japanland. I think this is pretty racist and would be disheartening for Japanese women who get isekai'd, having to compete with elves so Aryan that Hitler got a half-chub in hell. Number 10. Simpery. Simpery is something I find impossibly cringe. There's something about seeing someone be a smelly wet wipe that makes me really, really angry. ReZero, for example, is completely unwatchable for me. Subaru looked nothing like I thought he would, as he was some dickhead in a tracksuit instead of a car. Then the simpery begins. So desperately chasing someone looks like they play Valorant badly professionally, whilst he could have literally done anything else. That's not to say that I would have chose the maid girl or whichever one she was. Coloured hair not enough for me to tell them apart. To me the twins look like two halves of a squashy. Technically speaking, the whole dying repeatedly thing would mean that he'd been dying for years and should have at least experienced some frontal lobe development, and then expressly still made the choice to be stupid. I haven't watched far enough in ReZero to care about the plot of the universe. Something I don't have the patience for. There's not a chance that if I was in his position, the first thing that I would die of would be a blood-borne disease I contracted in a bar fight. Number 10. Never committing to a winner. Let's be honest. Competing for the affections of an anime protagonist is the quickest way to be diagnosed with a severe brain bleed. And I imagine that in the event the MC actually chooses a winner, the connection to the hive mind of the others would at last be severed and see them all wander aimlessly into traffic. Thus, having no progress with any of the harem is selected to blueball people like me who like definitive results and not aimless drudgery. There is of course a big difference between how characters would react to losing the Great Harem War, which kind of sounds like one of the campaigns won by Salah ad-Din. In traditional harems, the girls who don't get the little dork leave and then go off to die alone like old cats, never to be seen again. Reverse harems, usually, are far better written, and thus the men each find that they've learnt something from the experience, and usually they're all nobles anyway, so they can just have an arranged marriage in the end, who cares? Not winning the normal reverse harem is actually something that's beneficial in the long term, a bit like not winning X Factor. I personally like it when they find matches out of the harem that are way better for them, set up by the heroine to meet her friends and they can all be together and happy. But, that's me being a soppy twat. Number 11. Teacher harems. Call me old-fashioned, but what happened to diddling in schools? Roblox came along and broke down the historic and cultural institutions of diddling. There's a surprising number of harems based around teaching, and for the most part they revolve around people of similar age, thank Christ. Okay, little test here. Does this seem familiar to you? Wait, you're my tutor? But you're my age. Honestly, I wouldn't complain about this. There are Indian 4-year-olds making calculations in their head better than what I could muster with the greatest supercomputer known to man. It's like when you find a tutorial online for some difficult task. A little bit off topic, but if I don't hear a very Indian-sounding man, then I'm not fucking interested. I want to get this right. I'm not trusting some white boy with a beanie. If I don't see a statue of Ganesh in the background, then it's going off. Anyway, teaching or tutor harems usually involve the crushing difficulty of the Japanese high school curriculum, forced to do well or get sent to ports to die at sea as fishermen. Love seems to blossom in these high-tension environments. The tutors all seem to be good, which annoys me about the harems. Each steadily growing their souls through love and their brains through knowledge. There's always one member who struggles with English, which is pretty understandable as we don't get it either. The language equivalent of the abomination you could build in Spore. Royal tutors combine 2 tropes, and always without fail make me laugh. Educating royalty is certainly a challenge. Here's a fun thing to consider, also off topic. British royalty is considered by the Church of England to be divinely selected, which people just kind of don't talk about anymore as it's weird. Imagine telling the person that you believe was directly chosen by God that their little prince or princess of the realm had just shit themselves in preschool. Royal tutor harems are usually reverse harems, filled with handsome princes, which we know was not historically true. Imagine this guy being like, "Will you walk in the gardens with me, my lady?" I think a harem with lots of princesses just doesn't work as well. It wasn't until the modern era that they were expected to do silly things like reading and thinking, when prior it was quilting, flower arranging and tea drinking, which were the primary lessons. I don't think I've ever paid attention to someone's tea drinking technique. I think they could induce it intravenously in front of me, or alternatively up their bum, and I still wouldn't notice, so long as they let me talk about this week's hyperfixation and Warhammer. Number 12. Paedophiles, again sadly. Harems, for some reason, not only diversify the hair colour of their members, but also, sadly, their ages, I assume for tax reasons. You could find me, Wolf the mangaka, put a gun to my head and try to force me to place a literal child into the harem, and I'd rather detonate my bomb vest and take you with me directly to hell. Only joking, Jesus owes me big time for that whole thing with the cave. I came home one day, wasted, and wondered what dickhead had rolled a boulder over my wolf cave. I moved it and found some chill dude having a sleep. I told him to piss off out of my house, inadvertently starting a religion in the process. Oops, or you're welcome, depending on your belief system. The idea of a lolly, no, not one of these bad boys, but characters designed to look like children, Victorian children, which I've never understood. Victorian children are best identified with black lung rather than fancy dresses. To tie this all into the harem theme of this video, we know the main character's going to be a silly little nonce, so they're not going to have an issue with it, but neither do the rest of the harem. If I was in a reverse harem, all of us wondering who else would be competing for sweet Mildred's heart, and a fucking snot-nosed 8-year-old walks out and joins us, then I'm fairly sure that me and the rest of the harem would immediately call the authorities, or beat her with knobbly sticks. What's worse is that it also implies that me and the 8-year-old are on the same level of desirability to Mildred, leaving us with two possibilities. A, I'm a really lame adult, or B, alternatively, he's a really cool 8-year-old. Also, don't you fucking dare pull the ancient dragon talking point on me. It's not going to work. I know what you are. I've never had this conversation in person with someone, as, you know, I only associate with cool people, therapists and B&M employees. I actually think if someone started to...
Well, you know, actually, she's the great dragon of the Westerian Empire, known as the Calamity Dragon of Ancient Yore, and she is over 2,000 years...
And I'll just be looking at them like this, till they shut the fuck up and got in the go in the river sack. Some of you may not have liked that last one. If so, feel free to email me at suckyourmum.net. Wow, wasn't that enlightening? Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe before I get slammed by the algorithm again. Bye bye.